Welcome to the Christian Contractor Podcast.
Christian Contractor Podcast.
A show created for kingdom-driven Christian contractors that are focused on scaling their business in God's name while positively impacting the world around them. If you're ready to ascend from a contractor to a purpose-driven business owner, we're here to serve you. Here's your host, Brandon Guthrie.
So you guys hang in there, and we're going to jump in. I've got 3 quick questions here for Vince, and it's going to be epic value bombs for you guys. So question number 1 is, when is it not a system? When is your business not a system?
Well, I heard years ago that you can say you have systems, but if you haven't written them down, they don't exist. What I've learned is writing down your systems allows you to track their evolution, because a system isn't a rigid, non-movable thing. It's a living, breathing entity that will migrate as your company grows. Now, it should act as an outline in a framework for your company, but life happens. So writing down your system, like I said, allows you to monitor their evolution, and you can look where you came from and look where you're going. And having them written down allows you, when you hire that new guy, to have something tangible and written down to train them with. And if you're like me and you want to develop your business to sell when you're ready to retire, all of those systems written down gives you a tangible asset that will add value in dollar signs to your business, when you're ready to sell it. So write down your systems.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. And for people, I know so many, it makes sense to exit, eventually. So, that's crazy. It's going to add dollar signs to your evaluation. That's huge. I was like, oh, what? Light bulb. And for people that are still growing and going and, doing it for the first time, it's maybe a little bit tedious. You're like, oh, man, I don't want to have to do this. But it's like, just get it done. You just start planting the seed now. Think long term.
Yep.
It's going to be worth it in the long run, right?
Even if you're the one-man show, you take time to write it down, because, as I know, a one-man show, you're wearing all the hats. You're going to forget something. You're going to forget, hey, what was that great, brilliant idea I had, when a call comes in, how to document it and how to follow up with it. Write it down. Right. You don't have to remember it anymore if it's written down.
Right. Wow. So what would be a recommendation to people to write it down? Is it literally just a notepad, or is it on a computer, on a Google Doc, on a Excel document? What do you recommend?
What works for you is what I recommend. If digital works for you, do it on your laptop or your desktop or your tablet. If you're old school and want to write it down in a notebook, get a notebook and label it as your systems notebook. If you want to do a Google Doc, it doesn't. The medium doesn't matter as much as getting it written down. What works for you. That's what you need to do.
Got you. And what would be a great example of an SOP that you've written down where you're like, and obviously there was that first time, because I think that's the hardest one, is probably the first time you actually start to be disciplined. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to. What's an example of something that you would SOP?
How to handle a potential client. So your phone rings. How do you pre-qualify that client to know if you need to spend the time, effort, and money to go do a site visit or not? Our company doesn't run out to every single phone call that comes in. We have a pretty strict pre-qualification process. So one of our number one systems is the pre-qualification process. And the questions you ask and the word tracks you use and how to get to the motivation, and depending on the result, sends them on down one or two paths.
Wow, that's so cool. We're gonna have to have you on for another podcast to talk about your pre-qualification system process. That's gonna be good.
We can do that.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, perfect. That's huge. That's super important, guys. So for those of you listening in, audit yourself. Are you doing it? Maybe you're doing a little bit. Do it all the way. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be an investment. Be disciplined. Get that done. And it's going to add dollar signs to your business evaluation. So question 2 is, how do you get your team to follow the process? That's a tough one.
Yeah. You obviously got to have buy-in. From your team. Once you get that team, even if it's just a helper, you got to have buy-in for them to embrace your systems. I suggest, getting their input. Don't just go into your office, go into your truck and write down systems and then come back out, like Moses with the 10 Commandments and say, this is the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get their input. And, if you have a medium-sized company or a larger company and you're working on your systems, I'm not saying go to every single laborer, who's pushing a broom or, doing whatever and get their input. If you're big enough that you have, a lead guy or a lead carpenter, or two, or a lead guy and a salesman, go to those key players and get their input and say, guys, I'm trying to get more organized. I'm trying to write down some operating systems for us to make our life easier. Can you spend, the next week kind of thinking about, what I can do to systematize your role in the company and get their input.
Yes.
That input will definitely aid in the buy-in process.
Right. Yeah. If they actually help you set up the expectations or the system, because then it's also secretly also nailing down their expectations. And if they're part of it, then they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm cool with that. I can commit to that. That can be my system, my process. And then they can sign off on it. And then because they were a part of building it, it's like, yeah, of course you can hold me to those standards because I chose those. You chose your own standards to be held by. So that's huge. That's awesome, man. So, because that's really tough. I think a lot of people have tried working with your team, and it's really difficult. Actually, I have a client I'm working with right now. He's trying to implement a sales process into his team, and I think it's a little bit. I think he may have taken their approach of like, hey, Moses, 10 Commandments, this is the law.
Yeah.
And you really got to approach it a little differently. Otherwise, you're going to get that pushback, and that can break everything. So literally be like water. Bruce Lee says, work with them, not against them. So dude, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Huge. For those of you listening in, boom, make sure to approach it, build your process in your company with them because people support what they build. Yes. Question 3 is, how can you lead by example?
Hold yourself accountable to the systems you create. Despite what we might see in the news and think, most people aren't stupid. And your employees, you hired them for a reason. You hired them because you thought they were valuable. So they're going to see really quick if you are bringing these systems down and trying to put them in place and then not following them. So hold yourself to the same systems you create. If all your time cards have to be turned in by Friday, and there's a pile of paperwork that you're not responsible for as the owner or the lead guy, your guys are going to see that you're making them turn in their paperwork by Friday, but you're not doing your paperwork by Friday. And resentment's going to build, and they're going to be like, this guy, he's an idiot. He's not doing it. Why am I going to do it?
Yeah. Wow. That's so big, so profound. Walk the walk. Don't just do a bunch of this. You got to do a lot of this, right? Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
Wow. And, it sounds so simple, but it's like, are you doing it, right? Audit yourself. It's for people listening in, hearing this, it's like, okay, yeah, I've heard this stuff before. No. But are you doing it? I always say, like, even if I'm teaching someone, coaching someone, or doing whatever, a lot of the concepts, a lot of people have heard these concepts. It's like, but are you doing it? Audit yourself.
Right.
It's the discipline part that is the tough part. So, but it's key. And what I always say, and the way it works for me is like, whenever I hear the right thing at the right moment, at the right time, I finally put it into action. So I pray that this is that moment when people hear it and they're like, okay, you know what? I've been thinking about this, and now I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to lead by example.
Yeah.
I'm going to first one in, last one out. I'm excited to read this book by Simon Sinek, I think it is, and it's Leaders Eat Last. I don't know if you've read that book, but
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to going through that. That's really just leading by example. That's like, man, I think too many people in the trades, and in the space, maybe we have a little bit of pride, maybe we have some ego, and it's tough for us to lead by example like that. But what's great is when we have Christ in our heart, we have that posture of service, and it becomes a lot easier to, be that person that leads by example. So
Correct.
wow.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Huge. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to quickly recap on that. So one, it's not a system if it isn't written down. You got to get the buy-in by working with your team to build your systems. And then 3 is you need to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, and actually lead by example. Show your people over time. They're going to see that you actually do what you say you're going to do, and then they're going to do the same, follow in suit.
Yeah.
And my last question, probably the most important question, is how has God played a part in your journey? This is the Christian Contractor podcast. Let's talk about how God has, obviously, you've had God in your life for a long time now, and I would love to hear, how has God played a part in your story, and then how can we kind of take, what's like a tool like you could give someone to be able to help them, maybe have more of that discipline, have that greater discernment, have that, better service attitude, and moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. As you asked me this question a couple days ago, I wrote down some notes. So I'm just going to read them so I don't mess them up here.
I love it.
Hindsight is always 20/20. So, most of the time I haven't seen or recognized God in the heat of the moment. Looking back, though, so many experiences, both positive and negative, prepared me for where I live today. Growing up in the home of a business owner and a pastor, learning basic carpentry at one of my first jobs, organizational and management skills from classes in Bible college, and then working pest control where I managed a route of over 200 commercial clients every month. Being trained as a foreman when I got back into the trades, taking tests and getting certified in water, fire, and mold cleanup. I routinely use skills from every one of those experiences in my business today. And in the heat of the moment, it was just like, life sucks and is miserable. But, life is stabilized now, so that gives me the opportunity to look back and be like, oh my gosh, God was preparing me for where I'm living right now. And, something that came to mind, one of the, I was privileged to write a chapter in a book a few years ago called How Did You Get Started? And it's kind of I'll call it chicken soup for the entrepreneurial soul.
Nice.
And the quote I made up and ended my chapter with was, "Don't ever stay given up." And
That's good.
we all give up. You can be all rah and type A, and I don't ever give up. That's a lie. Everybody gives up at some point in their life. So
yeah.
the point is, just don't stay there. Give up, have a cry, sit in the mud, just like they did in the Bible, the sackcloth and ashes, have it out, get up, pull yourself up, bootstrap, and get on with life. Giving up is okay, just don't stay given up. And in Proverbs 24:16 says, "For the righteous fall 7 times, and they rise again, but the wicked stumble in time of calamity." So the Bible tells us the righteous stumble 7 times and they get up again.
Yes.
So that's the Bible tells us the same thing. Don't stay given up. Stumble and get up again.
I love that. Wow. Powerful, man. That's inspiring. That's motivating. That's biblical. Dude, God was working, building your character through each of those, situations to build you into the person that you are today. It's like when you pray for strength, God doesn't just wave his wand and give you strength. He puts you through something that's going to give you strength through that trial or through that process, right? Wow.
Correct,
that's powerful. So for Christian contractors listening in right now, if you're going through those moments, be confident that, God's there and he's building your character or building you in whatever way, he has for you, and everything works together for your good. Wow, that's so powerful. So amazing for our Christian contractors listening in right now.
Definitely.
Huge. Dude, Vince, you've brought some epic value. We're gonna get our systems down. We're going to get buy-in from our team because we're gonna work with them, and then we're gonna lead by example. And we're gonna know when we're going through the tough times, we're not gonna stay giving up. That is amazing, dude.
Right.
Huge. Vince, thank you so much for being here, my man. This is huge value. I really value and appreciate your time.
No, thanks for inviting me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Where can people find you, Vince?
Well, 2 places. They can go to our company website, which is masterremodelers.com. Just like it sounds, masterremodelers.com. The other place is I have a little podcast of my own, and it's nothing like Brandon's. It is geared more towards homeowners, and that podcast is Remodel Cafe. So you can go to remodelcafe.com and check that out.
Ooh, yeah, I'll be checking that one out. That's awesome. Yes. Amazing. So masterremodelers.com or remodelcafe.com, guys. Go check him out. Super excited. Yes. Thank you, Vince, so much. And thank you for all the listeners listening in right now. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Christian Contractor Podcast. I'm Brandon Guthrie with Dream Design Labs. If you're a Christian contractor that wants to scale to 7 and even 8 figures and beyond, leveraging a diversified marketing and sales strategy in a way that honors God, apply to work with us at contractorscalingchallenge.com/apply-now. Check it out. It's free to see if you qualify for the partnership program. I guarantee you'll get great value from the content and the application process. Remember, marketing doesn't have to be hard. All you need is the right tools and the right heart to serve. Till next time, stay blessed. Vince, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian Contractor family, for hanging out with us today. Let's get out there, do great work, and make a positive impact. If you want to connect with Brandon, head to Instagram and follow him at BG44. Let's change not only your life, but the world around you.